Okay, so for the most part, upper body thoracic mobility, so your thoracic is like your kind of middle part of your spine. Think of like the spine connected to your rib cage. The part of the squat that affects the most is essentially keeping your body upright in your squat and keeping your chest open, and then more complicated as you get into kind of different types of squats, your kind of front rack position if you ever go into that kind of stuff, which is really important if you're going to ever do kind of Olympic lifting or anything. But in terms of thoracic mobility for a normal back squat or goblet squat, essentially you're going to be looking at mainly the extension part. So the part of that part of your spine, your thoracic part, is going to do your extension, so moving back or obviously flexing forward, which is why you get a lot of like kind of hunchback positions, or really pulling back and hyperextending into the upper back for a lot of kind of overhead lifts. But the other movement is your rotation, so that's when you can look from side to side, moving from those ribs without your hips moving. But as I said, the main thing that the thoracic part of your mobility does within a squat is the extension part, so that is keeping upright in your squat so that when you are squatting and you come down, you don't fully collapse over into this position here, because then you'd have no centre of your weight, you'd be falling forward and you just wouldn't have a good time. So I'm going to give you two extension stuff, so a stretch and a kind of mobility style exercise, so strengthening, and then also we will do a little bit of rotation as well, because you don't want to just work in one plane, you want to be able to move all the way around, because it will help in the long run. So in the main thoracic extension stretch that I will show, and I kind of do with clients quite often, is it's called a prayer stretch. So you'll see it in yoga. When you come forward into like child's pose, you're going to come up on an elevated platform. So you're going to take the knees out so you have space for your body to come in, place your wrists or your hands on the foam roller, and then reach forward. You can obviously roll it forward so it's on your wrists, and it gives you a little bit of room to pull down. The reason I'm adding the foam roller or an elevation is just because it gives more space for your body to go down, so you get more movement in that thoracic spine here. So a lot of people struggle mainly with their thoracic extension because they are too curved over, so in that flexed position, and it's usually just due to sitting at a desk all the time, just everything's folding in. It may look like obviously it just comes from the shoulders, but a really big part of it is from that middle spine part, which most commonly is known as kind of like hunchbacks, and similar to that. Yeah, so you get that kyphosis of the spine. So there's that exercise, and what you can do in here, so stretching, generally just forward and holding into it, or you can go here and there are some good mobility exercises you do, which is you're in this movement and then you just lift up one arm at a time. So keep the head down facing flat, and you're just going to lift one arm up and then relax down and lift the other arm up and down, and you're just trying to keep the body fully flat down. And what that's going to do is that's going to strengthen the muscles either side of your spine, and just the back of your shoulders in general, to help you keep everything back. It's also going to help you have a more stable position with your arms overhead. So that's kind of the first one, mainly a stretch, but also a little bit of mobility. And the next thing I do with clients a lot is strengthening the spinal extensors or erectors, so the muscles that run either side of your spine, all the way down from the base up to the top. And for that, we're going to do some extensions. So you can keep it very simple. The easier version, regress version, is hands either side of the body, face down, and then you just lift up and then slowly lower down, and that's going to help create some strength and some work in the back of the spine. So here, up and down, and then the next level, once you get comfortable with that, is having your hands up, off, squeezing your legs together, lifting up and then relaxing down. You'll find that you probably don't have as much movement, but that's completely normal. What you're doing is contracting the muscles that run all the way up the spine to build some strength in that position. And those muscles are really helpful for keeping it nice and stable, so when you do go into that squat, you're going to help to be able to keep everything back and elongated. So, it's the next one, into our rotational exercises. This is a really simple one and I'm not going to go too much into detail with it, but it's something that I like to do in all of my warm-ups for my squats, just because it does get more movement in that rib cage, which then in turn will have more stability overall. The more control you have of your movement, the more control you have of the squat. So you're going to come down into a low squat, have your hands in the middle, and then you're going to rotate from side to side. So you're just going to lift up one, and then back down to the other side, up and down. And you'll feel quite a lot of like pulling through your back. So you'll feel it pull probably from the lower back up, and then you'll also feel a rotation and maybe a cracking sensation through your spine as well. That's absolutely fine. Just make sure your knees are over those toes, you're not knocking in, you're just going side and side. If you can't come all the way down into a low squat, you can put a plate underneath your heels so that your heels are a little bit elevated. It will help you to get a bit lower, but it's all good practice for your squat in the long run. I know this video was quite quick. I wanted to get it out there. It is not a huge part of your squat compared to the rest of the exercises, but it is something that is commonly overlooked, so I wanted to go over it for our final week. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Otherwise, have a fabulous Christmas and just let me know if you need anything else from me.